Bedtime Story is the 17th episode of the second season of The Golden Girls. This is directed by Terry Hughes, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I talk about the episode and share some thoughts. And to be honest, I didn't really care for this one for two reasons. One, I've mentioned this many times before, I typically do not care about flashback scenes in sitcoms. Sometimes they're fine, sometimes they can even be good, but in general, I'm not that much of a fan. I prefer stories that move forward. But even with that in mind, I just didn't think it was very funny. I didn't write down one single quote. And that's not to say it's badly written or that the dialogue is dull. It's just that usually with Golden Girls, there are a couple of things per episode that really make me laugh out loud. And unfortunately, that just wasn't the case here. So it's not necessarily a bad episode, but I also didn't find it to be very interesting. It starts off with everybody gathering in the kitchen. Sophia's cooking on the stove, and they find out that multiple people are coming to stay at the same time. So they start to talk about sleeping arrangements. And throughout the episode, and I'll talk about the various ones, they talk about different times they've had to share beds with each other. And I have to say, it is very sweet. I may not have found it very funny, but it is sweet to see that they're all there for each other, sometimes with a little bit of grumbling, but they're there when they need each other, which is really lovely to see. And the first flashback involves everybody piling into Sophia's warm bed with the electric blanket because the heating is out. And it's really cold. Blanche has her jacket on. Rose has her little bunny slippers. We get to briefly see the bunny slippers as she gets into bed, or slipper. We see one of them. And it's really sweet, and it's actually quite nice to see all four of them lined up in the bed, snuggling up together because it's cold. It is very sweet. Not funny, but sweet. Rose then prays, and I feel like that could have been funny. I think the funniest bit of this is when Blanche said something and she said, "Oh my gee," she says the full thing, and Rose says something like "wait your turn" or "one at a time." I didn't write it down because I didn't find it to be that funny, but looking at it now, if I were to pinpoint one of the funniest aspects, it would probably be that bit. We cut back to the present, it's stormy outside, we then get another flashback. I will say the pacing of each flashback and then the amount of time we spend in between each one was actually very well done. And this is a flashback where Rose goes into Blanche's room because she's scared because people have escaped from prison. So Blanche decides to tell her a story to help calm her down, but she tells her a rather scary story. The story wasn't badly written, not bad at all, but again, just for me, not that interesting. The next flashback is the time that Dorothy had bronchitis. Definitely, I think, the most dull of the four flashbacks. Again, not terrible, but really, for me, not that fascinating and probably the weakest. The last one I actually found to be a little amusing, not necessarily because it was funny, but just because of the element of surprise. Three of them are actually in a train station and they've missed the last train because the train leaves early, which is annoying, and they have to sleep on the benches there. And then in come a bunch of clowns because another train that's leaving, not to their destination, is actually a circus train. And I just wasn't expecting to see a whole bunch of clowns and circus performers, so that wasn't too bad. Honestly, it's, for me, a dull episode, largely because of the flashbacks. I'm just not a fan of them, but also because I just didn't think it was up to the usual quality of comedy as pretty much every episode before this. So technically, not bad. It works well. The pacing is good. It is sweet to see the characters supporting each other and snuggling up in bed together. But aside from that, Bedtime Story is just not one that appealed to me.